Hello, this is Tam from Click Deployed. In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up Salesforce source control and continuous integration from scratch. There is no scripting or installations needed. We'll do everything without ever leaving the browser. Let's talk about the process for a bit. Click Deployed is super flexible and you can set up any processes that you could imagine. In this demo, we're going to set up a process that looks like this diagram. Notice in this process, developer and admins no longer need to move change directly from sandbox to production, like in the case of change sets. Instead, admin and developers would move changes from his or her own sandbox into a Git repository. We are going to set up a CI job that does automatically deployment from GitHub to production. That means GitHub is now our source of truth, and that enables things like version control, history, backup, and code review. This also allowed teams to scale to multi-project teams without having to worry about collaborating on each other. So the question is, how do my admin and less technical user move changes through this process? Because working with Git often means having to work with XML, using IDE, and scripting as well as command line. And this is where Click Deploy declarative Git flow comes into place. We make it super simple for admins to move changes through the process within a few clicks. Now let's jump into the live demo. Cool, so I'm in Click Deploy right now, and I already have set up two Salesforce org, one for dev environment and the other one for production environment. I also created a GitHub repository, and for the purpose of the demo, we're going to start from a blank repository so you can see how the whole process was set up from scratch. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add this repository in Click Deployed. I'm just going to go and add an organization and select type as GitHub, give it a name of demo repo, and click authorize. And the authorization would come back because I've already signed in before. So I'm just going to go and select the repository that I just created. Done. Now, if you go back to the organization list now, you will see that we have two Salesforce org and a GitHub repository org. Now that we have this GitHub repository connected in Click Deploy, the next thing we want to do is we want to populate this GitHub repository with whatever the metadata in productions as the baseline, because our GitHub repository is currently empty. So to do that, I'm going to go and create a new deployment, and I'm going to select the source org being the production org and the target org being our Git repository. And I'm going to call it an init repo deployment. I'm going to save this. And next, I need to select the type of metadata that I need to track in my repository as a source of truth. So for that, I'm going to select a wildcard type, which is a special type that allows you to select based on the type rather than the name of the component. So in this case, I'm selecting anything that are related to object metadata. I'm also interested in tracking anything that related to code being in my Git repository at the source of truth. So I'm selecting that, and let's just say that we are good with this selection for now. All I need to do next is hit commit to Git branch. So at this point, Click Deploy is going to pull in all the XML from production and commit into this Git branch. Notice how we don't commit directly to master. That would allow the whole pull request process to go through. So now that's committed, we're just going to go and hit review changes now, and this allows to review what the difference between the branch that Click Deploy commit into versus the base branch. So if you go through and review the change and you're happy, you need to create a pull request to move change from the feature branch into master. So create the pull request. Great. So before we merge this pull request, we're going to go and set up the CI job just so we see that it's going to kick in and do a deployment to production. So we go back to click deployed and go into CI jobs and create your first CI jobs, right? So you go basically, I'll call it a daily deploy. And I select my source org being my Git repository. I select master being the branch that I want to push to production. And I select production org being my target. I will say deployed and I select the schedule that every day, or let's just say every week from Monday to Thursday. Let's just say we don't want to deploy on Friday, and we'll do it at 9 a.m. so somebody will be in the office when deployment happens. If I save this now, it will tell me that the next scheduled run would be tomorrow morning. So I can't see that it's execute right now. For the demo purpose, we're also going to flag that this job should run anytime there's a commit to this branch, which is master. So let's just save this now. Cool, so our CI job is done. Let's go to our GitHub repository and merge this pull request for now. And if we go back to click deployed, as we can see, the job is kicked off automatically as it's detecting a push to the master branch, and it's going to deploy all the code change in master into production. Excellent. So let's come back to our flow and kind of review where we are. We started out with populated our GitHub repository with production metadata. Then we set up a CI job that does automatic deployment from GitHub to production. And notice we didn't have to install Jenkins or set up any servers. Neither did we need to use any command lines or scripting. Everything was done in a few clicks. So this bit is done now. Let's see how Click Deploy can kind of streamline your team day-to-day change management process via our declarative Git flow. Cool. So I'm a business analyst or admin, and I have a ticket with me here that asks to update a validation rule. So how do I go about that? First, I would go to Click Deployed, go to the organizations, and go to my Dev Sandbox right from here. And I'm just going to go to my validation rule and update one of the formula. Let's just say that we want the credit limit to be 12 instead of 11. So let's save it. And once it's done, what I'm going to do next to move change to GitHub is to go to Click Deployed, click on Deployment, create a new deployment, select source being my dev org, and target being my Git repository. And I'm just going to call this update validation rule. And I'm also going to select a ticket as well. So in this case, CRM11 is my ticket, and I'm going to save it. What I need to do next is go to the add component and select the component. And we bubble up all the changes up the top. So in this case, I wanted to select my validation rule because I know that was the one that I'm changing. And I just need to click commit to Git branch. This is where Click Deploy does all this thing behind the scene, including reverse engineering your click configuration into code and merge it into the objects for you. And this is typically where the time-consuming bit happening. And typically that could take somewhere between an hour to a few hours, and it requires some technical workflow that sometimes for a less technical admin or BA is becoming very not practical to do so. But as you can see, in this case, it take a click. And now I can go and review my changes. At this point, it is super clear. I can see that in the diff view, that was exactly the change that I need to make. So I'm just going to go and create a pull request now. And I'm going to ask my team, please review my changes. And I'm going to create the pull request. So at this point, you can set up default reviewers and many other capability within GitHub that would allow you to specify who can approve when can you merge change into master, or who can merge the change into master, for example. Let's talk about code review for a little bit. So one other thing that I did here is that I forgot to change the error message to be consistent with the formula. Let's just assume somebody in the team had made a code review. Please update the error message. So gonna start the review, in which case email will be sent back and forth. And one other thing that Click Deploy does is that we don't just commit to your Git repository. We help you to iterate through the change process, because most change doesn't get it right the first time. What we need to do in this case is I just need to go back to my validation rule in my dev sandbox and change the error message to be 12, just so it's correct. And all I need to do next is go back to my deployment and click commit to Git branch again. And Click Deploy will basically go recommit and update the pull request, and everything's for you. So that should take just a moment. Okay, that's done. So if we go back to our pull request and we refresh our pull request, we'll see that Click Deploy has updated the error message, and it basically addressed the code review. And at this point, let's just say my team is happy and they give me an approval. I just need to basically go now and merge this pull request. So if I go, and before we merge this pull request, let's just quickly do a compare between our prod, our dev and our prod, just to see where we at. As you can see now, there is a difference between our dev and our prod at the moment, and we can see that the difference is being the error condition and the error message, right? So now if we go to GitHub and merge this pull request now, confirm merge, what we see now is that the CI job in Click Deploy would kick off, and it will deploy the latest change from master into production, and that should complete in a moment, and it's done. The other thing that we see in the CI job as well is that we calculate all the commit singular successful build, so you know that in this build, these are exactly the changes that go into production. And if we go back to our compare and quickly refresh, we'll see that dev and production would now be in sync. As you can see, it picked up the change and it compared it again, and it's great, meaning that it's the same. And if we go to a line-by-line diff view, we'll see that everything has been in sync. And because we enter a Jira ticket for this deployment, we can see that all the changes get reflected in Jira automatically. So by looking at this, we'll know exactly what change was made, by whom, at which point, all reflected as part of our Jira ticket. Click Deploy also make synchronize your sandbox quite easily, so you can bring your sandbox up to date with production very easy. To do that, simply create a new deployment and select your source being your Git repository, select the branch which is master, and let's just say your target is a dev sandbox and you're saying sing dev sandbox, for example, and all you need to do is save and hit deploy. So that would basically bring all this in master and deploy to your dev sandbox. Notice how we select everything here, but you can actually select just one single field in your Git repository to deploy. Over here, we actually parse it out, your Git repository, break down the object for you so you can actually do a selective deploy. Just to recap, we started out by adding GitHub to Click Deploy. We then populate GitHub with metadata from production. We then set up a CI job that does automatic deployment from GitHub to production. I also show you how less technical admins can move changes through the process within a few clicks. I hope this demo gives you a quick overview of how Click Deploy works. To experience the full product features including Bitbucket, DX support, metadata backup, and etc., sign up for a free enterprise trial and get started within a few clicks. Thank you for watching.